This is the Gore N More podcast with your hosts TJ Bowser, Chad Chrisman, and Wes Payne.
The man behind the mask. I don't wanna be buried in a
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Gore N More podcast. This is your host, TJ Bowser, and joining me today is actor, director, writer, and producer, James Sweet.
How you doing?
Pretty good, man. So let's intro yourself a little bit. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm an actor, a union actor. I started acting quite a few years ago, almost 20 years ago. Very good one. Still don't know if I'm a very good one, but I keep plugging away at it. I've always loved the idea of creating film. So, around 2007, which was an utter failure. And then I finally said to myself, if I want to actually do this, I need to make it happen. And I just writing and moving forward. That is with help with friends who have done this. One of my friends, Robert Blanche, who originally started the project with me, who went through a double lung transplant and surgery and had to step away from the project. Once we started on it, we finished a draft of the script, and then he got the call to go into surgery. And he actually just got home not that long ago. He's in ICU for like 280 days or something like that. It's crazy.
Wow. Double lung transplant, you said? That's intense.
He had like a disease that kind of got worse and worse over the years. And finally, he was on the list for a while, and it just one of those things. He was actually originally supposed to direct the film. Because he directed one of the made called Blood and Sugar. And he directed that. And I was actually going to be in Jason Rising as an actor. And I've never been a fan of self as an actor, just something, some people can do it really well. I'm not one of them. And so I was, I either had to do one or the other, and I was going to actually be in it as a character, and I was going to have Robert do the directing, but he was just not at the moment, so he had to step away. So I took over.
So before we get into the main interview portion of our show, I'm going to play a message from our sponsors. Gore N More is brought to you in part by A New Kind of Fear Customs. Friday the 13th inspired custom gaming controllers, hockey masks, latex masks, and collectible statues. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at A New Kind of Fear Customs. Do you like photography, cosplay, and Friday the 13th? Then check out 13 Gallows Lane. You can find them on Facebook at Gallows Goes to Hell, on Instagram at 13 Gallows Lane, and on Patreon at Emily Helene. Warning, some content not safe for work. And we're back. So for the first question is, what was your inspiration behind creating Jason Rising?
Friday the 13th.
That simple?
Years. Well, I mean, it's years of nation of Friday the 13th. I mean, back in middle school when I started out Friday the 13th, a friend of mine was an artist, and we liked drawing and sketching, and he started drawing these pictures of Jason, and I didn't know what that was. And I remember being, sixth grade when we went to outdoor school, and you're in the cabins, and this was before I understood who Jason was and the Friday the 13th lore. Having these crazy nightmares, in sixth grade in the cabin, they're like, Jason's coming. And I'm like, who the hell is this Jason guy? I wasn't scared. I wasn't having nightmares. And that, when I started seeing my friends' sketches, I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I started learning more about horror and buzz, and I fell in love. I remember being in art class in seventh grade, making a paper mache hockey mask for a Halloween costume. It looked horrible. I looked like a complete idiot, but I was in love with it. It drew me in.
So question number 2, how did you come up with the look for your Jason?
Well, during the time that, because of my age, when I was in middle school, one of the films that I watched over and over again was The Final Chapter. Mm-hmm. And Ted White, his version of Jason always terrified the shit out of me. It's kind of like kids nowadays when they watch Star Wars or something like that. It's what they watch first is going to be their memory. Mm-hmm. And what they adhere to. Same with Friday the 13th for me. I mean, when I saw the final chapter. That was that was my, was my teenage Frankenstein, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And Ted White, just his version of it, he just did such a wonderful job of getting this horrifying, was still human, but not, he was cunning, but yet still had this brutal way of killing, even though it wasn't like these creative kills that we see now where they're all kind of inventive and trying to outdo one another. He was just, I'm killing you, as Rob would say.
Yes.
He's killing me.
He's killing me.
But it was brutal. I mean, when he slams his hand through the shower door, smashing Doug's face into the wall. It's just brutal.
So what can you tell us about the story of Jason Rising?
Well, without giving away a whole lot, it's really defies it. As far as, we see Pete Daltrey, our officer, on this trek to look for some escaped fugitives that are heading in Camp Crystal Lake. But it's really, there's a lot more to it than that. It's a story about revenge, and it's so to the core of what Friday the 13th is all about. It's about off a lot of this. I mean, we wouldn't be here if Pamela was still around, really. Who knows what would have happened other than Alice being killed.
Yeah.
Would Pam still be in the woods killing? We don't know.
Very, very true.
It's going back to the core of Suspect, which is one of our taglines. Revenge never dies. And it correlates through the reason why Jason kills and the reason why, Pam's revenge was always ignited Jason. And that's without giving away too much story.
So next question, what are some challenges that you have faced so far creating the film?
Every aspect of this thing is a challenge. Anytime you start a film, it's kind of like a marriage. You are creating a bond with the story, with the script, with, creating a idea, which is difficult enough. And then you have to find the right team who believes in that and wants to follow you on this journey. Because that's what it is. You're going on a journey. Oh, okay, I'm going to make this awesome Friday the 13th fan film. You're going on a journey. There's going to be bumps in this journey. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be problems. And, is obviously problem solving. You understand how you're limited on your budget. You're limited on the things you can do, but you're not limited by your imagination. So you have to figure out how to make those work together. How can we do a really awesome kill $500? As an example. Yeah. It's sure we can go crazy writing, the most elaborate script we can, but that necessarily won't do you any good when you get the cameras out and your actors are there and you can't pull that off because it's unrealistic. Mm-hmm. And, you may not be able to have the coolest cabin in the woods, as far as your vision is because of the limitations. So you have to go, okay, make this logistically possible. And those are some of the challenges, I think, is being smart about how you want to create your film, making it's all about what you see in that frame, that lens. Mm-hmm. And if you can be brave enough, go, okay, I can still tell my story. I have to be limited, then you'll be able to pull it off. And it's like one of the other aspects, and I don't mean to jump around, but it's like this funding campaign. I've had a lot of help from Vince DeSantis. He's been a huge coach on a lot of this stuff because he's been through it. He's gone down that road, and I wish I had 30 grand sitting in the bank. I would have done it myself, but it's something that I'm familiar with, and until you do it, and you gotta go through before you get a good understanding of things. Sometimes you got to get your feet wet.
What are some things you would like to accomplish with this film?
Well, main reasons why I did this, do a fan film, and the one that struck the most accord with me is Friday the 13th. Pull off with this is to be able to sit there, childhood again, to see Jason on the screen, how I remember, to see some of that imagery, and feel that same feeling when I watched Friday the 13th as a kid. That's my goal. And all this other stuff is really cool, and it's a bonus and it's fun. And, I'm meeting and talking to a lot of great new people, fans all across the world who never known existed without doing this film. Lee, I guess I'm being selfish in this. My feeling of watching this film when it's ending, which puts a lot of pressure on me because, I want to do the best that I can of the people watching and the fans, but ultimately I want it to be the best for me. So I can, I did what I set out to do. Make a cool Friday 13th fan film.
Hell yeah.
Which isn't easy,
What was it like working on an iconic character like Jason Voorhees?
It's, as far as iconic, that is subjective to what your favorite version of Jason is. For me, I was able to pull off that attempt of Ted White with my actor Dan Kyle, who has a great build, understanding of what my vision is as far as the Jason I'm trying to pull off. And when we first put the costume on, I stepped back and I'm like, this is happening. we are able to shoot this film. We have Jason in front of us. You have to go, okay, copy Ted White. We don't want to copy, Richard Brooker. We don't want to copy, Kane Hodder. We don't want to be a destination of that. Make it your own, but use as guide. A more interesting thing for an actor than to just say, hey, I want to see Ted White on the screen. Well, I want to see the look of Ted White and the feel of Ted White, but Jason has, every actor that portrayed Jason has still put their own stamp on it in a way, which I think is great. I like seeing that, what they can do with it.
What would make Jason Rising stand out amongst so many other Friday the 13th fan films?
Every one of these films is different, from the story, from the look of Jason, from kind of like what I was saying before, is that people have their own version of what they remember. Like Vengeance has that part 6 tie-in. Voorhees is very much more the Derek Mears, Kane Hodder feel. And his name was Jason, obviously, with the sack mask now. So it's out from the others as far as our feel, our look. And that's the thing, is that they're all different. So it's as their own idea of what Friday 13th means to them. And I think it shows with the different ideas that are coming out with these fan films. And it's cool. Obviously we talked about it before. There is a little bit of drama that goes on with this, and there doesn't need to be, because we're all fans just trying to have the same, I guess. We were just trying to make the best film with Jason in it we can.
Okay. What does Friday the 13th mean to you?
It's my childhood. Jason, like I said, was my teenage Frankenstein. I remember I started doing haunted houses when I was younger. When I was a teenager, I had a haunted house business for a little bit. And the one thing that I always first thought of, the first scene, which was always my favorite thing to do in the haunt, was the Friday 13th stuff. I remember, I think the first Friday 13th film I saw in the theater was actually part 5.
Ooh.
I was, a little bit younger, and part 4 was already out at the time, but part 5, A New Beginning, was the first one I saw, and which sequence, and you get to see a hint of the old Ted White stuff with the intro, and Corey Feldman again. So that was great. But as far as Friday 13th, as far as nightmares go, for me as a kid, Jason was always the thing that I had the bad dreams with him in it. It was never, it wasn't Freddy Krueger, it wasn't Michael Myers. Jason was the one who always scared the shit out of me for some reason. And you want to understand that. So you get intrigued and you're like, how do I understand this monster, But yeah.
Who's your favorite Jason and why?
Ted White.
Okay.
The way he portrayed it is still, and that's one of the things that we wanted to incorporate with, and on this, we wanted to show a little bit of that cat and mouse, a little bit of that running, chasing down a victim, the fast-paced walking, which when you see Jason after Tommy's sister, Trish, stuff, and we didn't see Jason running, after, it was mostly, I think in part 2, he did a little bit of running, but after, didn't really see that anymore. It was a really scary trait that Jason had instead of the fast walking, because, let's face it, we're into that intelligence now where we run past zombies because we know they can't catch up to us. But, when 28 days later came out, they all started running and they're like, oh shit, this is scary again. So, when you have Jason able to run after you and catch up with you, it feels a little more realistic and a little more terrifying, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So Ted White brought that. I've loved that thing that Ted White brought. As far as his character.
Who is your favorite final girl from the Friday the 13th franchise?
Amy Steele.
That was quick. Amy Steele.
And honestly, when I first started writing this, I've had so many different script ideas for Jason Rising. When we first started, it's evolved to the final thing. But my initial thing was, and like I said before, sometimes you can't always do what you write on paper, mm-hmm. even though it might be fun. But my initial thing was I wanted Ginny Field to be Tommy Jarvis's psychologist. And it started out with Tommy being released from the mental institution, powers out, storms brewing. She's his, for her, because my understanding is that's kind of the career path she took on was psychology, and which worked for her character really well as in part 2. It's what she was, I believe, studying child psychology in college. Mm. What a good way to bring my two favorite characters, Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis, and Amy Steele's together, mm-hmm. his doctor. And there's an interesting play between, she doesn't really say much to him about her experience with Jason. She didn't want to guide him or lead his anxiety and fear, amplifying it, saying she went through it as well. She just wanted to, look at it as a matter, not a personal matter. So that was, I guess, a character arc for her, is finally buckling, expressing that she went through it as well.
That's some pretty good insight on why you chose that character. What is your favorite Jason Voorhees kill?
Jeez, I don't know if I have one. When Paul gets the harpoon in his balls, and when he's coming up out of the water, and after seeing his girlfriend in the raft, that's a great one. A lot of it's iconic imagery. For me, the shower scene with Doug getting his face smashed. Mm-hmm. We see that full face of the shower scene Hawk, and I love that stuff. That's a lot of people are like, okay, and the sleeping bag kill is always great. Mm-hmm. The face smash in Jason X with the frozen liquid, that's a great one too. I love that. Seeing when in part 3 puts the harpoon up against the light post when she's holding the wallet, Shelley's wallet, and we first see him in the hockey mask. Those are iconic moments. So yeah, I could go on. I don't know if I have one favorite kill, but it's just those images that we see remind us of Friday the 13th. I know Vince had mentioned in the face to the wheelchair guy. That's iconic. Those imagery from Friday the 13th is why we love this franchise so much, because they're unique and they stick in our brains. So I love that stuff. I love all of it.
13th and final question. What's your feelings on the current state of the Friday the 13th fandom?
I would say it's stronger than ever. With fan films, with games. It's basically, there's a battle cry right now for more Friday the 13th. And, we're waiting. Don't want to be disappointed. It's almost the same thing that they did with Elm Street in a way. We got this reboot, and some people loved it, some people hated it. It's subjective. But how many years has it been? 10 years now. We've seen anything. So in a way, the fan films, I guess, are filling the void. But anybody else, I want to see it. Do something, make it badass, bring some of our favorite stuff back and have a good script and, make it work. I think the reboot was sort of it was a nice idea, but I don't think it was executed as it should have been.
Okay. I can see that.
Halloween, the reboot for Halloween. I just watched that last night, second time, which I enjoyed it a lot better the second time. Mm-hmm. Liked it the first time, but
the first time I was outraged.
Well, was that?
The first time I watched the Halloween 2018, I was so outraged. I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't what I expected. And then the second time I was like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Right. And I got what they were doing. Yeah, I could see maybe some of the dislike of it. But that being said, I like the way we were able to see Michael Myers again. And it was unique. I will say that. It was a different take on it. But I did enjoy it. And it wasn't like a rehash of the original Halloween, but it had some elements. And it had a feel of Halloween again. Maybe not necessarily the original, but, we did see some of the imagery. Laurie Strode was standing outside the school window, similar to Michael. Got a sense of that, but I think the second time around was just a better experience for me. I enjoyed it more as a film as a whole. And that's the thing is I'm trying to, especially when you're a filmmaker, I'm trying not to be on certain things. Only because I know what it takes to make a film. It's a lot of work. I mean, obviously, when you have a bigger budget, you have bigger crew, and you get to focus on one thing instead of, like for me, I get to run around setting up the next shot, running the smoke machine, hopefully being able to jump back and look behind the camera and go, action, cut. Okay, that was good. No, I get to run around and do a bunch of shit and go, Carl, okay, you call action. No, you call action. But you have a new respect for as a whole when you see Reboot. I respect Derek Mears as an actor, as a stuntman. He put his heart and soul into it. But as film as a whole, I'm not saying that it was bad. I'm just saying it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't something that I enjoyed, where the new Halloween, I enjoyed a lot of elements of that. It's certain things that I take, for purposes, even like with Jason Rising, a lot of it stemmed from possibly the idea of Predator. Some Evil Dead elements going in it. It's trying to copy. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here off the mark, but there's certain things that just it's not just me going, okay, I imagine Friday the 13th and that's what I'm doing. No, I have all kinds of influences where I'm like, what if we added the look of this or idea from this film and blended it in? Could this be cool? Would it like fan of seeing Halloween for the first time? Is this going to piss people off? And in the end, you have to bold with your choices and confident with the fact that you are doing what you believe in. I mean, who knows? Maybe not everybody's going to like what I do. Yeah, I can't expect that, but I have to sit back and go, okay, I did what I planned on doing and wanted to do with this. So I left the whole fandom thing, but me being a fan, I'm trying to show some of that iconic imagery with Jason Rising, but also to something different. I think, and that's the great thing that it would Never Hike Alone was he gave us an original feel with Jason. He gave us, an original character, a simple but still unique story idea. When I first saw Never Hike Alone, I was entertained for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
I kept watching and I'm like, I didn't know anything about the Tom Matthews, and then I saw it. I'm like, that means that what he was doing, people supported, from the franchise. Mm-hmm. It worked. What he was doing worked. And I remember when I first started doing Jason Rising, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, because there's so many Star Wars fan films out there. It's like, I don't, there's a few really good ones that have stood out, but when it comes to the Friday the 13th fan films, there really hasn't been that one that really made a statement, and Never Hike Alone did that. And I remember going, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to see who's doing this, what works, what doesn't work. And then I started coming out, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to watch this. And because I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I'm like, this looks interesting. So I watched it, and I remember sitting there for 50 minutes or whatever that is, and I was like, tamed. And I even reached out to Vince when I started doing it. I'm like, dude, that was fucking great. And I mean, it was, you can't, the production value, everything worked well. And, it was a blast, and to be able to off like a Friday the 13th fan film, we have to be true to what, Vince was true to what he envisioned and what he loved about Friday the 13th. That's all any of us can do.
Mm-hmm.
What we want as far as what we want to see. Not everybody's going to like it, but if I'm true to myself, then I think I'll be successful with it.
Good. Well, thanks for coming on, man. But before we go, I'd like you to plug everything Jason Rising. Tell them where you can find him at, when the Indiegogo's launching, all that stuff.
Well, you can check us out on Facebook. Jason Rising is the Facebook stuff. You can go to jasonrising13.com. It's our webpage. We will be launching our second campaign, which is a much better version of our first one, to finish the final thing for the project. So we can, because a lot of the stuff we're just starting in on filming in June. So we did a little bit, but most of the principal photography will be starting in June. May 1st will be the launch of the second campaign through Indiegogo. And you had me at Dewback because, I think I showed you I was a sand trooper in the 501st.
Yes.
So, of course I wanted to be on the Dewback discussion.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and this opportunity to interview you. And we're going to be really pushing this Jason Rising fan film. We believe in it, and we can't wait to see what you have in store for not just the fans, but for everybody. I feel like this is going to change the name of the game, and let's hope that we can get this funding going and you can get this film out to us, man.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I know my team appreciates Carl Winnery, my right-hand guy on this. He's been working hard. We've all been just passionate, with all the actors. Dan Kyle, he's been, pushing along, struggling through it with us as well. And, we're all putting our hearts into it. So we're going to try to give you the best thing we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining me on another interview for Gore N More podcast. And that is TJ Bowser signing off.